The champagne flute slipped through my fingers, and I caught it just before it shattered against the marble floor. My heart hammered as I straightened, the weight of the silver tray digging into my already aching forearm. Around me, Miami's elite glittered like the crystal chandeliers overhead, their laughter echoing through the oceanfront ballroom of the Fontainebleau. I'd been on my feet for 6 hours straight, weaving through designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, invisible to everyone, except when they needed their glasses refilled. The event coordinator had warned us this morning. Tonight's charity gala hosted some of the city's most powerful people. Keep your head down, don't make eye contact, and for God's sake, don't spill anything. My lower back throbbed with each step, a reminder that my waitressing shoes were 2 years old and held together more by hope than by their original stitching. I'd worked 3 jobs to save enough to move to Miami 6 months ago, leaving behind a small town in Georgia, where opportunities were as rare as cool summer days. This catering gig paid double my usual rate, money I desperately needed for next month's rent. The ballroom was a study in excess. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Atlantic Ocean, where moonlight danced across dark waves. Ice sculptures of swans melted slowly on tables draped in cream silk. A string quartet played something classical and forgettable, while guests discussed art acquisitions and European vacations with the casual ease of people who'd never worried about making rent. I adjusted my grip on the tray, my fingers cramping. The uniform they'd given me was a size too small, the black fabric pulling tight across my shoulders. I'd pinned my dark hair into a severe bun, hoping to look professional despite the exhaustion that shadowed my eyes. 24 years old, and I already felt ancient. "Emma!" Miguel, the head server, hissed from across the room, gesturing frantically toward a group of men gathered near the terrace doors. "Table 7 needs service. Move!" I wove through the crowd, my tray balanced perfectly despite the obstacle course of elbows and evening bags. The skill came from 6 months of practice, countless near disasters teaching me to anticipate movement, to flow like water around the solid masses of wealth and privilege. As I approached table 7, I caught fragments of conversation. Business deals conducted in low voices, names I didn't recognize but that clearly held weight. The men stood in a loose circle, their body language screaming power and control. I'd learned to read these signals, to understand the invisible hierarchies that governed rooms like this. One man stood slightly apart from the others, his posture radiating authority even in stillness. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His tuxedo fit him perfectly, not a single wrinkle disrupting the clean lines. A platinum watch caught the light as he gestured while speaking, the kind of timepiece that cost more than most people's cars. I focused on my task, approaching with my practiced invisible efficiency. "Champagne, gentlemen?" Most of them didn't even glance my way, simply reaching for glasses without acknowledgement. I was furniture, a function rather than a person. But the man in the perfect tuxedo looked up, and for a moment, our eyes met. His were dark, almost black in the ballroom's golden light, and something flickered in them. Recognition? Curiosity? Before I could analyze it further, something caught my attention. A red dot, impossibly small, dancing across the shoulder of his jacket. My breath froze in my lungs as I tracked it upward, watching it settle with deadly precision on his forehead. Time seemed to slow. The dot was perfectly steady, professional. I'd seen enough action movies to know what it meant. Someone, somewhere in this room or beyond these windows, had a laser sight trained on this man, had a weapon pointed at his head. My mind raced. If I screamed, caused a panic, would the shooter fire immediately? Would innocent people get hurt in the chaos? But if I did nothing, this man would die right in front of me, his blood spattering across the champagne I was serving. The decision crystallized in an instant. I set down my tray with hands that barely shook, stepped closer to him, and did the only thing I could think of. I smiled, bright and flirtatious, and placed my hand on his arm. "Excuse me," I said, my voice pitched low and intimate, for his ears only. "There's a red dot on your forehead. Don't react. Don't move. Just follow my lead." His entire body went rigid beneath my touch, but to his credit, his expression didn't change. Those dark eyes locked onto mine with sudden, intense focus. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice a low rumble with a trace of an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or Sicilian. "Right now, I'm the woman who's about to save your life," I whispered, moving even closer. The dot tracked across his face, settling back on his temple. "Dance with me. Now." His jaw tightened, suspicion clear in every line of his face. "Why should I trust you?" "Because in about 10 seconds, someone's going to put a bullet through your skull if you don't move." My hand slid from his arm to his hand, my fingers threading through his. "Please." For a heartbeat, he didn't react. Then, with fluid grace that suggested he was used to making split-second decisions, he pulled me toward the dance floor. The string quartet had shifted to a waltz, and he swept me into the rhythm without missing a beat. His hand settled at the small of my back, warm through the thin fabric of my uniform. We moved together, and I felt the red dot tracking us, trying to find its target again. I guided us deeper into the crowd of dancers, using their bodies as cover. "Talk," he commanded softly, his breath warm against my ear. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent me," I hissed back, hyper-aware of how close we were, how his cologne smelled like expensive wood and something darker. "I'm just a waitress who happened to notice the laser sight aimed at your head." His grip on me tightened fractionally. "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe. I just didn't want to watch someone die tonight." I risked a glance over his shoulder, scanning the ballroom for any sign of the shooter. "Do you have enemies who'd want you dead?" His laugh was cold, humorless. "In my line of work? That's a long list." We spun, and I caught a glimpse of a figure on one of the upper balconies, something metallic catching the light. "What exactly is your line of work?" "Nothing that concerns you." He guided us toward the far side of the dance floor, his movements calculated, protective. "Who else knows about this?" "No one." I saw the dot. I reacted. That's it. The music swelled, and he pulled me closer, eliminating any space between us. My heart raced, but not entirely from fear anymore. "My name is Emma, by the way. Emma Thompson." "Vincent," he replied, and something in his tone suggested he didn't give his name often or easily. "Vincent Caruso." The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, the weight it carried, told me it should have. Around us, other dancers glided past, oblivious to the danger. The red dot had disappeared, but I didn't know if that meant the threat was gone, or if the shooter had simply found a better position. "Your friends at table 7 are looking worried," I observed. 3 men in expensive suits had abandoned their drinks and were scanning the room with the kind of alertness that suggested they weren't just business associates. "They're not friends," Vincent said. "They're family." The way he emphasized the word made it clear he wasn't talking about blood relations. I'd lived in Miami long enough to know what family meant in certain contexts. My stomach dropped. "Oh, God," I breathed. "You're—" "Careful what you say next, Emma Thompson." His voice remained pleasant, but there was steel beneath the silk. "Words have consequences." I swallowed hard. I'd just grabbed a Mafia boss and pulled him onto a dance floor. I'd touched him without permission, issued him commands, invaded his personal space. In action movies, people who did that sort of thing usually ended up dead. "I was just trying to help," I managed. His dark eyes studied my face, searching for deception. Why? Because it was the right thing to do? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Because I'm apparently an idiot who acts before thinking. Another cold smile. At least you're honest about that. The waltz ended, and couples around us broke apart, applauding politely for the quartet. Vincent didn't release me. Instead, he kept his hand at my back, guiding me off the dance floor toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "Emma," he said, testing my name. "Tell me, how exactly did you spot that laser sight when no one else did?" I glanced around, suddenly aware that several of his family members had formed a loose perimeter around us. They looked like models in a luxury watch ad, but their eyes held a hardness that suggested they were much more than decorative. "I was serving your table," I explained. "I had a clear view. The dot was just there on your forehead. I didn't think. I just acted." "You didn't think," he repeated slowly. "You saw what you believed was a threat to a complete stranger's life, and your immediate instinct was to put yourself in danger to help them. Well, when you phrase it like that, it sounds stupid." It was stupid. His thumb brushed across my lower back, a gesture that might have looked casual, but sent electricity through my nervous system. Or incredibly brave. I haven't decided which yet. One of his men approached, a tall figure with silver threading through his dark hair. He leaned in, whispered something in rapid Italian. Vincent's expression hardened. "It seems," he said to me, "that you were correct about the threat. My people found evidence of a sniper position on the building across the street. The shooter is gone now, but he was definitely there." Relief and terror warred in my chest. "So I didn't imagine it." "No, you didn't." His gaze intensified. "Which means you saved my life, Emma Thompson, and that puts us both in a very complicated situation." "What do you mean?" "I mean," Vincent said softly, "that you're now a witness. You can identify the location, the timing. If my enemies discover that you interfered with their attempt on my life, you become a target." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "But I don't know anything. I don't even know who you really are." "You know enough." He gestured to one of his men. "Dante, make sure the exits are secure. No one leaves until I say so." Then, to me, "I'm afraid you won't be returning to your serving duties tonight, Emma. For your own protection, you need to stay close to me." "I can't just leave my job," I protested. "I need this money. I'll compensate you for your time." He pulled out a phone, his fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Generously, consider it a thank you for the warning." "I don't want your money," I said, even as my practical side screamed that I absolutely did need his money. "I just want to go home and forget this ever happened." Vincent's expression suggested that wasn't going to be an option. "Tell me about yourself, Emma. Where are you from? What brought you to Miami?" The personal questions caught me off guard. "Why does that matter?" "Because," he said patiently, "I need to know if you're truly just an unlucky waitress, or if someone planted you here for exactly this scenario." Indignation flared hot in my chest. "I'm not some kind of plant. I'm from Georgia. I moved here 6 months ago to escape a dead-end life. I work 3 jobs to make rent. Tonight was supposed to be easy money, and instead, I'm being interrogated by—" I cut myself off before I said something truly stupid. "By?" His eyebrow arched. "By someone who clearly doesn't trust anyone," I finished lamely. He studied me for another long moment, then seemed to reach a decision. "Dante, have someone check her story, employment records, background, everything." To me, "Don't take it personally, it's just business." "Right," I said tightly, "because invading someone's privacy is totally just business." A ghost of a real smile crossed his face. "You have spirit. That's good. You'll need it." Before I could ask what he meant, the event coordinator rushed over, her face flushed with stress. Mr. Caruso, I'm so sorry for the disruption. If there's anything we can do— The disruption, Vincent said smoothly, was handled perfectly by your staff. In fact, this young woman deserves a commendation for her quick thinking and excellent service. The coordinator looked at me with surprise, as if seeing me for the first time. Oh, well, thank you, Emma. Get back to your other guests. Vincent dismissed her with the ease of someone used to command. I'll handle things from here. As she scurried away, I turned back to him. What happens now? Now, Vincent said. You tell me everything you remember about that red dot. Every detail, no matter how small. And then we figure out how to keep you alive. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. I'd come to this gala to make rent money. Instead, I'd entangled myself in something dark and dangerous, with a man whose name apparently carried enough power to make event coordinators stammer and whose enemies had tried to kill him in a room full of witnesses. I thought about my tiny apartment, my 3 jobs, my simple goal of building a better life in Miami. All of it suddenly felt impossibly far away. Vincent was watching me, reading my fear with an accuracy that suggested he'd seen it many times before. I know you didn't ask for this, Emma, but the reality is, you're involved now. The question is whether you'll accept my protection or try to run and hope my enemies don't find you first. That's not much of a choice. No, he agreed. It isn't, but it's the only one you have. I followed Vincent through a private exit, my mind still reeling from everything that had happened in the last 20 minutes. His hand remained at my elbow, not quite restraining, but making it clear that leaving wasn't an option. 2 of his men flanked us, their eyes constantly scanning our surroundings with professional paranoia. The night air hit my face, humid and salt-tinged from the ocean. We'd exited onto a service corridor that ran along the back of the hotel, away from the valet stands and photographers. A black SUV waited, its engine already running. Get in, Vincent instructed, opening the rear door. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that getting into a car with a man I'd just learned was connected to organized crime was a terrible idea. But the alternative, going home alone, unprotected, possibly followed, seemed even worse. I climbed in. Vincent slid in beside me, and Dante took the front passenger seat. The driver pulled away from the curb with practiced smoothness, merging into Miami's late-night traffic. Where are we going? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Somewhere safe. Vincent pulled out his phone again, typing rapidly. My people are already checking the security footage from the hotel and surrounding buildings. We'll know who was on that roof within the hour. I watched the familiar streets slide past, neon signs reflecting off rain-slicked pavement. We were heading away from my neighborhood, toward the exclusive waterfront areas where penthouses cost more than I'd make in several lifetimes. I need to call someone, I said. My roommate will worry if I don't come home. Vincent handed me his phone without looking up from his own. Use this. Don't mention where you are or who you're with. Just say you picked up an extra shift. The casual way he issued commands, expecting instant obedience, made my teeth clench. But I took the phone and dialed Sarah's number, rehearsing the lie in my head. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice fuzzy with sleep. Hello? Sarah, it's me. Sorry to wake you. I just wanted to let you know I got asked to work an overnight event. The tips are amazing, so I said yes. Don't wait up. Emma, whose phone is this? Your number came up weird. Mine died. I lied, the words tasting bitter. I borrowed someone's. I'll be home tomorrow morning, okay? Sarah yawned. Okay, be safe. Love you. Love you too. I ended the call and handed the phone back to Vincent, who was watching me with an unreadable expression. Well done, he said. Natural delivery. Have you lied to her before? Only about how okay I actually am, I admitted, then immediately regretted the confession. Something about the enclosed space, The darkness outside made me more honest than I should have been. Vincent's expression softened fractionally. Financial struggles? The usual. I shrugged, trying for casual and probably failing. Turns out Miami is expensive and waitressing doesn't pay as well as I'd hoped. But I'm managing. 3 jobs, you said earlier. It wasn't a question. He'd been listening, filing away every detail I'd mentioned. What are the other 2? I debated refusing to answer, but what was the point? His people were already running a background check on me. I work mornings at a coffee shop in Wynwood, and I do freelance transcription work online when I have time. The catering gigs are extra whenever I can get them. And your family? Why aren't they helping you? The question hit a nerve. I don't have family, not anymore. My parents died when I was 16, car accident. I lived with my aunt until I turned 18. Then we had a falling out. I've been on my own since then. Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. I wasn't sure which would be worse. I'm sorry, he said, and to my surprise, he sounded genuine. Losing parents young is difficult. You sound like you know from experience. His jaw tightened. My father died when I was 22, murdered by a rival family. It's why I took over the business earlier than planned. The casual way he mentioned murder sent a chill through me. This was his world. Violence and vengeance wrapped in expensive suits and oceanfront real estate. The SUV turned into an underground parking garage, descending several levels before stopping in a private bay. Vincent exited first, scanning the area before nodding to me. I climbed out, my legs unsteady after the adrenaline crash. We took a private elevator that required a key card to operate. The interior was all mirrors and chrome, showing me multiple reflections of myself, looking disheveled and out of place next to Vincent's polished perfection. You'll stay in one of my guest suites tonight, he said as we ascended. Tomorrow we'll assess the situation and determine next steps. Next steps for what? I asked. I told you everything I saw. That red dot. The position. That's all I know. It's not just about what you know. The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse, revealing floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay. It's about what they think you know, and whether they believe you're valuable enough as leverage against me. I stepped into the penthouse, momentarily forgetting my fear as I took in the space. Modern furniture in shades of black and gray, original artwork on the walls, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. Everything was pristine, expensive, and completely impersonal. Does anyone actually live here? I asked. I do, sometimes. Vincent shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket, draping it over a chair. He rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle. I have several properties. This is the most secure. Dante appeared from somewhere deeper in the penthouse, carrying a tablet. Boss, we've got the footage. You're going to want to see this. They moved to a large screen mounted on the wall, and after a moment's hesitation, I followed. The screen showed security footage from various angles around the Fontainebleau. Dante pulled up one particular feed, zooming in on a rooftop across from the hotel's ballroom. There, he said, pointing to a dark figure barely visible against the night sky. Professional setup. Long-range rifle, thermal scope. He had you in his sights for at least 3 minutes before the waitress intervened. 3 minutes. Vincent had been seconds away from death for 3 full minutes, and no one had noticed except me. Can you identify him? Vincent asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. Working on it, but boss, there's something else. Dante pulled up another feed, this one showing the hotel's service entrance. My stomach dropped as I saw myself on screen, arriving for my shift that afternoon. She's been here since 2 p.m., helping with setup. Times match her story about the catering gig. Of course they do, I said, annoyed, because I was telling the truth. Vincent glanced at me, then back at the screen. Keep digging. I want to know everything about that shooter, who hired him, how he knew I'd be there, why tonight. Already on it. We've got people checking with our usual sources. Dante hesitated. And boss? The Morellis sent a message. They want to meet tomorrow. Neutral ground. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The Morellis, Vincent repeated, his voice dangerously soft. Interesting timing, don't you think? Could be coincidence, Dante offered, but he didn't sound convinced. Or they're testing us, seeing how we respond to tonight's attempt. Vincent's hand curled into a fist, then deliberately relaxed. Set up the meeting, but double security. I'm not walking into an ambush. Dante nodded and left, taking his tablet with him. Vincent turned to me, and I saw the cold calculation in his eyes. This was the man who ran a criminal empire, who made decisions that probably involved violence and death. The Morellis, I said carefully. Are they the ones who tried to kill you? Possibly. They've been encroaching on our territory for months. A move like tonight would fit their style. He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, the amber liquid catching the light. But it could also be the Russians, or the Colombians, or any number of smaller operations that think they can take advantage of perceived weakness. That's a lot of people who want you dead. Welcome to my world, Emma. He took a sip, watching me over the rim of the glass. Still glad you saved my life? I thought about it, really thought about it. I could have done nothing. Let someone else notice the threat, or not notice at all. I could have finished my shift, collected my pay, gone home to my cramped apartment and my mountain of bills, and remained blissfully ignorant of Vincent Caruso and his dangerous world. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I'm glad. I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd just watched you die. Something in his expression shifted, became less guarded. You're either very brave or very foolish. Can I be both? The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Come, I'll show you to your room. You need rest. He led me down a hallway lined with more expensive art, stopping at a door near the end. The guest suite was larger than my entire apartment, with a king-sized bed, private bathroom, and another stunning view of the bay. There are clothes in the closet that should fit, Vincent said. Various sizes. Help yourself to anything you need. I opened the closet to find designer labels I'd only seen in magazines. Dresses, casual wear, even pajamas, all with tags still attached. Do you regularly stock your guest rooms with women's clothing? Sometimes business associates bring family members. I like to be prepared. He moved to the window, looking out at the glittering cityscape. The door locks from the inside, but I'd prefer if you didn't lock it, just in case something happens, and my people need to get to you quickly. The implication that something might happen made my pulse quicken. You really think they'll come after me? I don't know yet, but I don't take chances with things I value. He turned back to me, his dark eyes intense. You saved my life tonight, Emma. That creates an obligation. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours, I said automatically, even as something deep in my chest responded to his possessive tone. No, he agreed. Not yet, but you're under my protection, which means you follow my rules. Don't leave this penthouse without my permission. Don't contact anyone except through phones I provide. And most importantly, don't trust anyone who isn't vetted by me or my inner circle. The reality of my situation was sinking in like a stone in deep water. I'd traded one kind of trap, poverty, instability, constant struggle, for another. A gilded cage with an ocean view. How long? I asked. How long do I have to stay here? Until I'm certain the threat has passed. His expression softened slightly at whatever he saw in my face. I know this isn't what you wanted. but it's necessary. Try to rest. We'll talk more in the morning." He left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood in the middle of the luxurious room, still wearing my too-tight waitress uniform, and tried to process everything that had happened. I'd saved a Mafia boss's life. Now I was essentially his prisoner, protected but controlled, safe but trapped. And the worst part was, I couldn't even be angry about it. Because he was right. If his enemies thought I mattered to him, or that I knew something valuable, I was in danger. I showered, washing away the sweat and fear of the evening, and changed into silk pajamas that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The bed was impossibly soft, the sheets cool against my skin. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Miami glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and dangerous. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion pulled me under within minutes. My last thought before darkness claimed me was that my life had just changed irrevocably, and I had no idea if it was for better or worse. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The red dot, Vincent, the penthouse. I found clothes laid out on the chair near the bed. Designer jeans that fit perfectly. A soft cashmere sweater, even new undergarments in my size. The precision of it was unsettling. How had they known my exact measurements? Following the coffee scent, I made my way to the kitchen. Vincent sat at the island, reading something on his tablet, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black t-shirt that showed off the lean muscle of his arms. He looked younger like this, less intimidating, almost normal. "Good morning," he said without looking up. "Coffee's fresh. Help yourself." I poured a cup, adding cream and sugar, and leaned against the counter. "Did you have someone measure me while I was sleeping?" "Security footage from the hotel provided approximate measurements. My assistant ordered the clothes based on that." He finally looked up, his gaze traveling over me with an assessment that felt almost clinical. "They fit well." "This is crazy," I said, wrapping both hands around the warm mug. Yesterday I was worried about making rent. Today I'm wearing a $1,000 sweater and drinking coffee in a penthouse with a... I stopped myself. With a what? His expression was neutral, but I sensed I was on dangerous ground. "With someone who makes people very nervous," I finished carefully. He smiled, a real smile this time. "Diplomatic. That's good. You'll need that skill if you're going to survive in my world." "I don't want to survive in your world. I want to go back to mine." "And you will, eventually." He set down the tablet. "But first, we have some matters to address. The Morellis want to meet this afternoon. I'm considering bringing you with me." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Why would you do that?" "Because if they were behind last night's attempt, seeing you alive and under my protection sends a message that I'm not easily killed and that I value the people who help me." His eyes held mine. "But it's also dangerous. They might see you as leverage or a weakness to exploit. So what you're saying is, I'm damned either way." "Welcome to the life," Vincent said dryly. "Every choice carries risk. The key is calculating which risks are worth taking." Before I could respond, Dante entered from another room, his phone pressed to his ear. His expression was grim. "Boss, we've got a problem. That shooter from last night? We found him. Or what's left of him. Someone put 2 bullets in his head and dumped the body in the Everglades. Professional cleanup." Vincent's face became a mask. "How long ago?" "Medical examiner says maybe 4 hours after the attempt on your life." Dante pocketed his phone. "Someone wanted to make sure he couldn't talk." "The Morellis," I said quietly. Both men looked at me. If they hired him and the attempt failed, they'd want to eliminate the evidence, right? Vincent's expression was unreadable. Possibly. Or someone else entirely is playing a deeper game. He stood, his decision made. Emma comes with us to the meeting. I want Marco Morelli to see her face, see that she's alive and well treated. Let him wonder exactly what she told me. Boss, that's a risk, Dante warned. Everything worth doing is a risk. Vincent moved closer to me, and I forced myself not to step back. Emma, I need you to trust me today. Can you do that? I thought about the red dot, about the split-second decision I'd made to save a stranger's life. Trust wasn't something I gave easily. Life had taught me that lesson too well. But something about Vincent, despite the danger he represented, made me want to believe he'd keep me safe. Yes, I said. I can trust you. His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. Good. Because where we're going, trust is the only thing that might keep us both alive. The black SUV cut through Miami's midday traffic with purpose, flanked by two identical vehicles, one ahead, one behind. I sat beside Vincent in the back seat, hyper-aware of the gun I'd glimpsed beneath Dante's jacket when he'd helped me into the car. I was dressed in one of the outfits Vincent's assistant had procured, a simple but elegant navy dress that hit just above the knee, paired with heels that made me feel both powerful and vulnerable. Vincent had insisted I look like I belonged with him, not like a frightened waitress he'd picked up at a charity gala. The Morellis have been in Miami for 3 generations, Vincent explained as we drove, his voice low and matter-of-fact. Marco's grandfather came over from Naples in the 50s, built an empire through construction contracts and waterfront development, very respectable on the surface. And underneath? I asked, though I could guess the answer. Loan sharking, gambling, protection rackets. The usual. They stayed in their lane for decades. We stayed in ours. But Marco's ambitious. He sees opportunity and expansion, even if it means war. Vincent's jaw tightened. Last night might have been his opening move. We pulled up to a restaurant in Little Havana, its facade bright with tropical colors but its windows tinted dark. The place looked closed, despite the lunch hour, a sign that this meeting had been arranged specifically for privacy. Stay close to me, Vincent instructed as we exited the vehicle. His hand found the small of my back again, that possessive gesture I was beginning to recognize. Don't speak unless I indicate it's safe, and if anything happens, Dante will get you out. Understood? I nodded, my mouth too dry for words. Around us, Vincent's men took up positions with military precision. Whatever was about to happen, everyone was prepared for it to go wrong. The restaurant's interior was dim and cool, with ceiling fans turning lazy circles above red leather booths. A man waited at a corner table, flanked by his own security. He stood as we approached, and I got my first look at Marco Morelli. He was older than Vincent by perhaps 15 years, with silver threading through dark hair slicked back from a face that might have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. He wore a cream-colored suit that screamed old money, and a smile that didn't reach anywhere near those cold eyes. Vincent, he said, his voice carrying a thicker Italian accent than Vincent's. Good of you to come. And you brought a guest. How unexpected. Marco. Vincent's tone was cordial, but guarded. May I introduce Emma Thompson? Emma, this is Marco Morelli. I offered my hand, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Marco took it, his grip just a shade too firm, holding it a moment too long. Enchanted, he said, his gaze raking over me with uncomfortable intensity. Though I must admit, Vincent, I didn't know you were seeing anyone. The last I heard, you were quite the eligible bachelor. Emma and I have a unique relationship, Vincent replied smoothly, guiding me into the booth beside him. She recently did me a considerable favor. I find myself in her debt. Marco's eyes sharpened with interest. A favor? How intriguing. Please, you must tell me more. Vincent signaled a waiter, who appeared immediately with water and menus no one would read. "Business first, Marco. You requested this meeting. I assume you have something important to discuss." Always so direct. Marco settled back in his booth, steepling his fingers. "Very well. I wanted to extend my personal condolences about the unfortunate incident at last night's charity gala. I heard there was some kind of security scare. Everyone all right, I trust?" The casual way he mentioned it, the slight curve of his smile, made my stomach turn. He knew. Of course he knew. The question was whether he'd been behind it. "Everyone's fine," Vincent said, his hand finding mine beneath the table, squeezing once in warning. Thanks to quick thinking from the hotel's security team, and from Emma, who happened to notice something amiss. Marco's gaze swiveled to me with predatory focus. "Did she now? How fortunate for you, Vincent, to have such observant friends." "I prefer to think of it as divine providence," Vincent replied, his thumb stroking circles on the back of my hand, in a gesture that might have looked affectionate, but felt like a reminder to stay quiet. Someone was clearly watching over me last night. Indeed. Marco sipped his water, his expression thoughtful. Though I can't help but wonder what exactly Miss Thompson observed. Security scares can be so easily misinterpreted, don't you think? This was it. The real reason for the meeting. Marco wanted to know what I'd seen. What I might have told Vincent. How much of a threat I posed to whoever had orchestrated the assassination attempt. "I saw enough," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. Vincent's hand tightened on mine in warning, but I continued, meeting Marco's cold stare. "I saw that someone wanted Vincent dead, and I saw that they failed." A tense silence fell over the table. Marco's smile had frozen in place, becoming something predatory and dangerous. "Bold," he said finally. "I can see why Vincent values you, Miss Thompson. Beauty and bravery, a rare combination." "Emma speaks her mind," Vincent said, his tone casual, despite the tension radiating through his body. "It's one of the things I admire about her. She's not afraid to stand up for what she believes is right." Marco's laugh was cold. How refreshing. Most people in our world have learned that such honesty can be hazardous to one's health. "Is that a threat, Marco?" Vincent's voice dropped several degrees. "A threat? No, no." Marco raised his hands in mock surrender. "Merely an observation. After all, we're all friends here, aren't we? I simply wanted to meet and ensure there were no misunderstandings about last night's events." "The only misunderstanding," Vincent said carefully, "would be if someone mistook my gratitude toward Emma as a weakness, or if they thought that an attack on my life would go unanswered." The air between the two men crackled with unspoken violence. I sat frozen, realizing I was witnessing a conversation that had nothing to do with the actual words being spoken. This was about territory and power, about testing boundaries and issuing warnings wrapped in pleasantries. "Of course not," Marco finally said. "I would hate for anyone to labor under such a misapprehension. In fact, I wanted to propose a toast." He gestured to the waiter, who brought over a bottle of expensive wine. "To new friendships," Marco said, raising his glass once it was poured. "And to the continuation of old alliances." Vincent raised his glass, but didn't drink. I followed his lead, bringing the wine to my lips without actually tasting it. "To the continuation of mutual respect," Vincent countered, "and to the understanding that certain boundaries are not to be crossed." They stared at each other over the rims of their glasses, two predators sizing each other up, before finally drinking. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of carefully worded small talk and veiled threats. I pushed food around my plate, too tense to eat, while Vincent and Marco discussed everything from Miami real estate to the upcoming mayoral election, all surface-level conversation with deeper meaning beneath. Finally, as the waiter cleared the plates, Marco leaned back and smiled. I'm so glad we had this opportunity to clear the air. Vincent. And to meet the lovely Miss Thompson. I do hope we'll see more of each other. I'm certain our paths will cross again, Vincent replied, standing and helping me to my feet. Emma and I should be going. We have other appointments this afternoon. Marco stood as well, extending his hand to Vincent, then to me. Until next time, then. Miss Thompson, it was truly a pleasure. As his hand closed around mine, he leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. Be careful, pretty bird. Men like Vincent don't keep things they can't control, and sooner or later he always disposes of what he can't use. I yanked my hand back, fear and anger warring in my chest. Vincent noticed immediately, his eyes narrowing as he looked between Marco and me. Is there a problem? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. No problem at all, Marco said smoothly. I was simply wishing Miss Thompson well. It's a dangerous world out there after all. One can never be too careful. Vincent's arm came around my waist, possessive and protective. Emma is perfectly safe, I assure you. She's under my personal protection now. How fortunate for her. Marco's smile remained in place, but his eyes were hard as stone. Good day, Vincent, Miss Thompson. We left the restaurant, Vincent's men forming a protective circle around us as we walked to the SUV. I could feel eyes on us from neighboring buildings, from parked cars, from darkened doorways. Marco wasn't the only one watching. Once we were safely in the vehicle and moving, Vincent turned to me. What did he say to you, at the end? I debated lying, protecting myself from the conflict I might cause by repeating Marco's words. But Vincent's eyes demanded truth. He said men like you don't keep things you can't control, that you always dispose of what you can't use. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. He called me pretty bird. Vincent's expression went cold and deadly. He threatened you. He warned me, I corrected, about you. And do you believe him? Vincent asked, his voice carefully neutral. Do you think I'll dispose of you when you're no longer useful? I thought about the past 24 hours, the protection he'd offered, the genuine concern I'd glimpsed beneath his controlled exterior, the way his touch had been possessive, but never cruel. No, I said finally. I don't think you will. But I also think Marco knows something about you that he wanted me to fear. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the passing city. Marco and I have history, he finally said. 5 years ago when my father was killed, Marco saw it as an opportunity. He came to me, offered his assistance in finding the killers, wanted to form an alliance. What did you say? I told him I didn't need his help, that I would handle my family's business myself. Vincent's jaw tightened. He took it as an insult. Since then, he's been waiting for me to show weakness, to make a mistake he can exploit. And bringing me to that meeting, I said slowly, showed him that you care about something beyond power and territory. He thinks I'm your weakness. He's not entirely wrong. Vincent turned to look at me, his dark eyes intense. I do care about you, Emma. More than is probably wise, given how recently we met. You saved my life. You risked your own safety without hesitation. That kind of selflessness is rare in my world. His words created a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the Miami heat. Vincent, My phone buzzed in my purse, the new one Vincent had given me. I pulled it out to see a text from an unknown number. Pretty bird should know when to fly away. Next time Vincent won't be there to protect you. M. I showed Vincent the screen, watching his expression harden into something cold and murderous. Dante, he said, his voice cutting through the vehicle's interior. Change of plans. We're not going back to the penthouse. Take us to the estate. The estate, boss? Dante sounded surprised. The estate, Vincent confirmed. It's time Emma saw where I really live, and it's time Marco Morelli learned what happens when he threatens what's mine. The estate turned out to be a sprawling compound in Coral Gables, hidden behind high walls and even higher hedges. As we passed through the gates, I caught glimpses of manicured lawns, fountains, and a house that looked more like a Mediterranean palace than a residence. "You live here?" I asked, unable to keep the awe from my voice. When I need to think clearly, or when I need to be surrounded by people I trust absolutely. Vincent helped me from the SUV, his hand steady at my elbow. The penthouse is convenient for business. This is home. The main house was stunning. Cream-colored stone, terracotta roof tiles, arched windows that overlooked gardens that could have graced a magazine spread. But it was the security I noticed most. Cameras positioned at strategic intervals, men in dark suits patrolling the grounds, the sense of being watched from multiple directions. "This is a fortress," I said. "It needs to be." Vincent led me through massive wooden doors into a foyer that took my breath away. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, art that I was certain was original and priceless. My father built this place as a stronghold, somewhere our family would always be safe, no matter what happened outside these walls. An older woman appeared from a side hallway, her gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She looked at me with sharp, assessing eyes before turning to Vincent. "Vincenzo, you didn't tell me we were having a guest," she said in Italian-accented English. "Emma, this is Maria. She's been with my family since before I was born." Vincent's tone softened with genuine affection. "Maria, this is Emma Thompson. She'll be staying with us for a while." Maria's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, I'll have the blue guest suite prepared. Miss Thompson, do you have any dietary restrictions I should know about?" "No, ma'am. Thank you." I felt completely out of my depth, like I'd wandered onto a movie set. "Maria raised me after my mother passed," Vincent explained as the housekeeper bustled away, already on her phone organizing my accommodation. "She's one of the few people in this world I trust completely." He led me deeper into the house, through rooms that looked like they belonged in a museum. We ended up in what he called his study, a wood-paneled room lined with books, dominated by a massive desk, and overlooking the gardens through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to a leather chair. "We need to talk about what happens next." I sank into the chair, exhaustion finally catching up with me. "Marco's not going to back down, is he?" "No, the text message was a direct challenge. He's testing my resolve, seeing if threatening you will make me cautious, make me vulnerable." Vincent poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, handing me one. "But what he doesn't understand is that threatening you has the opposite effect." I took a sip, the liquor burning pleasantly down my throat. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done years ago. I'm going to end this." His eyes held mine. "But I need you to stay here, where you're safe, while I handle it." "Handle it," I repeated. "You mean kill him?" Vincent didn't deny it. "Marco ordered the hit on me last night. I'm certain of it now. And by threatening you, he's shown that he has no respect for the old rules, the boundaries that keep our world from descending into chaos. If I don't respond, I look weak. And weakness in my business is a death sentence." I thought about the man I'd met at the restaurant, cold-eyed and cruel beneath his polite veneer. About the text message, the implicit threat. About everything Vincent had told me about this world he lived in. "I'm not going to pretend I understand your world," I said carefully, "or that I agree with the choices you have to make. But I'm also not naive enough to think there's any other way out of this. Marco won't stop until one of you is dead." "No, he won't." Vincent set down his glass. "Which is why I need you to promise me something, Emma. Stay here. Don't leave the grounds. Don't communicate with anyone outside without going through Maria or Dante first." And don't let guilt make you do something foolish, like trying to run away to protect me. That's a lot of promises. You saved my life. Now I'm trying to save yours." He moved closer, kneeling beside my chair so our eyes were level. "I know you didn't ask for this. I know you just wanted to work your shift and go home. But you're here now, in the middle of something dangerous, and the only way through it is together." His hand came up to cup my face, and I found myself leaning into the touch despite everything. There was something about Vincent that drew me in. Not just his looks or his power, but the glimpses I'd caught of the man beneath, the way he'd spoken of his father, the affection in his voice when he mentioned Maria, the protection he'd immediately offered me without question. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Of Marco, of this world, of what might happen to you. But I'm also—" I trailed off, uncertain how to express the confusing tangle of emotions in my chest. "Also what?" His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "Also drawn to you in a way that makes no sense. We just met. You're a criminal. I should be running in the opposite direction. But when you touch me, when you look at me like you're doing right now, I feel safer than I have in years." Something blazed in his eyes, desire, possession, and something deeper that I couldn't quite name. "Emma, A sharp knock interrupted him. Dante entered without waiting for permission, his expression urgent. "Boss, we've got a situation. 3 of our collection guys were hit this afternoon. Morelli's men, looks like. They left a message. Said this is just the beginning unless we back off their territory." Vincent stood, his expression transforming from tender to deadly in an instant. "Casualties? 2 in the hospital, 1 dead. Leo Marchetti. You remember? He has 3 kids." I watched Vincent's hands curl into fists, his jaw setting in a hard line. "Call everyone in. Full mobilization. I want every man we have ready to move within the hour. And get me a meeting with the commission." "The commission?" Dante looked surprised. "Boss, they don't usually get involved in— This isn't a dispute anymore. Marco just declared war. The commission needs to know so they can decide whether they're with us or against us." Vincent's voice was cold, controlled fury. "Go. Now." Dante left, and Vincent turned back to me. The man who'd been touching my face moments ago was gone, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. "I'm sorry you have to see this side of me," he said. "But this is who I am, Emma. This is what my life requires." "I know." I stood, crossing to him. "And I'm not asking you to apologize for it. Just come back alive, okay? Don't let Marco win." He pulled me against him, his arms tight around my waist. "I have too much to live for now," he murmured against my hair. "Too much to protect." We stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Then Maria appeared in the doorway. "Vincenzo, your men are gathering, and I've prepared the blue suite for Miss Thompson." Her eyes softened as she looked at us. "Be careful, ragazzo mio. Your father would want you to come home." Vincent kissed the top of my head before releasing me. "Show Emma to her room. Make sure she has everything she needs." "Of course." Maria beckoned to me. "Come, dear. Let the men do their posturing. We women know the real strength is in surviving." I followed her upstairs, glancing back once to see Vincent already on his phone, issuing orders in rapid Italian. He looked every inch the Mafia boss, powerful, dangerous, in complete control. The blue guest suite was beautiful, all soft fabrics and elegant furniture, with a balcony overlooking the gardens. But what struck me most was the collection of books on the shelves, the fresh flowers on the dresser, the personal touches that made it feel like someone's home, rather than just a place to sleep. "This was Vincent's mother's favorite room," Maria said, smoothing an already perfect bedspread. "She would sit here for hours, reading or looking at the gardens. She had a good heart, like yours." You can tell I have a good heart after knowing me for 5 minutes? Maria smiled, her weathered face crinkling. I can tell you saved Vincenzo's life without thinking of the cost to yourself. I can tell he looks at you differently than he's ever looked at anyone. And I can tell you're terrified but staying anyway. That's a good heart. She moved to the door, then paused. He's a good man, Miss Thompson, despite what the world thinks. His father raised him to be strong, but his mother raised him to be kind. Both are in there, fighting for dominance. What he becomes depends largely on who he chooses to have beside him. With that cryptic statement, she left me alone with my thoughts. I moved to the balcony, looking out over the estate. In the distance, I could see men gathering, vehicles arriving, Vincent's army, preparing for war. And somewhere out there, Marco Morelli was doing the same, readying his own forces for the conflict that seemed inevitable now. My phone buzzed. Another text, this time from Vincent. Stay safe. I'll be back by morning. Trust Maria. I typed back, I trust you. Be careful. His response came immediately. For you, I will be. As the sun began to set over Miami, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, I realized that my life had changed irrevocably. I was no longer just Emma Thompson, struggling waitress trying to make it in the big city. I was the woman who'd saved Vincent Caruso's life. The woman he was willing to go to war to protect. And despite the danger, despite the fear, despite everything that common sense screamed at me, I realized I didn't want to go back to my old life. Not if it meant leaving Vincent behind. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. I woke to darkness and the distant sound of voices. For a moment, disoriented by the unfamiliar room, I thought I was back in my apartment. Then reality crashed back. Vincent, Marco, the estate. I grabbed my phone. 3:47 a.m. Vincent still wasn't back. The voices grew louder, and I recognized Dante's urgent tone. Something was wrong. I threw on the robe Maria had left for me and crept to my door, opening it just enough to hear. Don't care what time it is, we need to get him to a hospital now. Dante's voice echoed up the stairwell. No hospitals, Vincent's voice responded, strained with pain. Too many questions. Call Dr. Russo. He'll come here. My heart stopped. Vincent was hurt. I didn't think, just ran down the stairs in my bare feet, following the voices to a room off the main foyer. What I found made my breath catch. Vincent sat on a leather sofa, his white shirt soaked with blood. A gash ran along his left arm, deep and ugly. Dante was pressing a towel against it, but blood was already soaking through. What happened? I demanded, rushing forward. Vincent looked up. Surprise and something else. Was that pleasure? Crossing his face. Emma, you shouldn't be... Don't you dare tell me what I should or shouldn't be doing. I cut him off, kneeling beside him. My hands moved on autopilot, assessing the wound with skills I didn't know I had. This needs stitches. How did this happen? Knife, he said tersely. One of Marco's men got past our security at the meeting with the commission. The meeting, I repeated, my hands shaking as I applied pressure to the wound. Was it supposed to be neutral ground? It was. Dante's voice was tight with fury. Until Marco decided rules don't apply to him, he tried to have Vincent killed right there, in front of the other families. Maria appeared with a first aid kit, her face pale but composed. Dr. Russo is 20 minutes away. We need to slow the bleeding until then. I took the kit from her, finding gauze and antiseptic. My mind had gone into a strange, hyper-focused state. I need you all to give me space. Dante, keep that towel pressed here. Maria, get me clean water and more towels. They moved to obey, and I found myself alone with Vincent, my hands working to clean the wound while my heart raced. You have medical training, Vincent observed, watching me work. My mother was a nurse. She taught me the basics before she died. I focused on the task, not trusting myself to meet his eyes. "This is bad, Vincent. If it had been a few inches to the right." But it wasn't. His good hand came up to cup my face, forcing me to look at him. "I'm all right, Emma. Alive because of you, and alive still because I was careful." "This is careful?" I gestured at the blood. "You could have died." "But I didn't." His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "Why are you crying?" "Because I'm angry at you for being reckless, and terrified that you might not come back next time, and confused about why I care so much when I barely know you." The words tumbled out, raw and honest. "And because seeing you hurt makes me want to find Marco Morelli and—" He pulled me close with his good arm, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted of blood and desperation and something deeper. I kissed him back, pouring all my fear and relief and confused emotions into it. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes held mine with an intensity that made my chest tight. "I care about you too," he said softly. "More than is wise, more than is safe. You've gotten under my skin, Emma Thompson, in a way no one ever has." Dr. Russo arrived then, a distinguished older man who took one look at Vincent's arm and immediately started issuing orders. I was pushed aside as he worked, cleaning and stitching the wound with practiced efficiency. "You were lucky," the doctor said as he worked. "Another inch and it would have severed the brachial artery. You would have bled out before reaching help." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Vincent replied, his eyes finding mine across the room. "I had something worth living for." An hour later, the wound was cleaned, stitched, and bandaged. Dr. Russo left instructions for care and antibiotics, warning Vincent to rest and keep the arm immobile for at least a week. "A week," Vincent scoffed once the doctor had left. "I don't have a week. Marco made his move tonight. Now I need to make mine." "What happened at the commission?" I asked. We were alone now, Dante having gone to debrief the other men, Maria retreating to prepare food despite the early hour. Vincent leaned back against the sofa, exhaustion written in every line of his body. I presented my case, showed them evidence that Marco ordered the hit at the charity gala, that he's been encroaching on our territory, breaking agreements. The commission was ready to sanction him. "But?" I prompted. But Marco had prepared his own evidence, doctored footage, falsified records, testimony from people he'd paid off or threatened. He made it look like I was the aggressor, like I'd been planning to move against him first. I sat beside him, careful not to jostle his injured arm. And the commission believed him? Some did. Others were uncertain. That's when Marco made his real move. He offered a compromise. A merger of our territories with him in charge. Said it would bring peace, stability. Vincent's jaw tightened. The commission thought it was reasonable. And when you refused? That's when his man came at me with the knife, in front of everyone, breaking every rule of the commission. It should have proven he's unstable, dangerous. He laughed bitterly. Instead, he claimed I provoked it, that my refusal of his reasonable offer was tantamount to a declaration of war. I tried to process this. So what does the commission do now? They've called for a cooling-off period, 2 weeks for both sides to stand down, reconsider options. His hand found mine, threading our fingers together. But Marco won't wait 2 weeks. Tonight was a statement. He'll move again. Soon. Then what do we do? Vincent's eyes met mine, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. I don't know. For the first time in my life, I genuinely don't know the right move. If I strike back, I look like the aggressor. If I wait, I look weak. Either way, Marco wins. We sat in silence for a moment. Then an idea began to form in my mind, crazy and dangerous but potentially brilliant. What if you don't fight him at all? I said slowly. Vincent looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Emma, I can't just surrender. I'm not saying surrender. I'm saying, what if you change the game entirely? What if instead of fighting over territory and power, you offer him something he can't refuse? Something that looks like weakness but is actually strength? His eyes narrowed with interest. I'm listening. I took a deep breath. Marco wants to look powerful in front of the commission. He wants to be seen as the peacemaker, the reasonable one. So let him have that. Publicly agree to his merger proposal, but with conditions that actually benefit you. What conditions? Equal partnership, not him in charge, joint decision-making on all major operations, and... I hesitated, knowing this next part was risky. Make me part of the deal. Absolutely not, Vincent said immediately. I'm not using you as... I'm not asking you to use me. I'm offering to be visible proof of your commitment to peace. Marco threatened me because he thinks I'm your weakness. What if instead I become your strength? Your connection to legitimacy, to the outside world? Vincent stared at me, conflict clear in his expression. Emma, if you're publicly connected to me, there's no going back. Your life will never be the same. You'll be a target for every enemy I have. I'm already a target, I pointed out. At least this way, I'm a target with purpose. And maybe, just maybe, we can turn Marco's trap back on him. How? I smiled, the plan solidifying in my mind. By making him think he's won. By giving him the public appearance of victory while you maintain actual control. And by making me so visible, so connected to both of you, that any move he makes against me makes him look like the aggressor breaking the peace. Vincent was quiet for a long time, his strategic mind clearly working through the angles. Finally he spoke. It's insane. But it could work. It puts you in danger. I'm already in danger. He pulled me close with his good arm, resting his forehead against mine. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish. Can I be both? His laugh was soft and genuine. Yes, you can definitely be both. He pulled back to look at me seriously. If we do this, Emma, you need to understand. It's not just about business anymore. You'll be mine in the eyes of everyone. My partner, my woman, my equal. There's no halfway with this. My heart hammered in my chest. And is that what you want? For me to be yours? From the moment you grabbed my hand at that gala and pulled me to safety, you've been mine, he said, his voice rough with emotion. The question is whether you want to be. I thought about my old life, the constant struggle, the loneliness, the feeling of treading water and slowly drowning. Then I thought about the past 2 days with Vincent. Terrifying, yes, but also electric, alive, purposeful. Yes, I said. I want to be yours, and I want you to be mine. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, his good hand tangling in my hair. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his smile was genuine. Then tomorrow, we changed the game. The press conference was Vincent's idea, a very public announcement of the merger between the Caruso and Morelli families, with me standing beside him as proof of his commitment to peace and legitimate business. Maria had transformed me into someone I barely recognized. Designer dress in deep emerald that made my eyes pop, hair styled in soft waves, makeup that was elegant but not overdone. I looked like I belonged in Vincent's world now, like I'd been born to stand beside powerful men and smile for cameras. You look beautiful, Vincent said, appearing behind me in the mirror. His arm was still bandaged beneath his suit jacket, but you couldn't tell unless you knew what to look for. And terrified. Both accurate, I admitted. Vincent, are you sure about this? Once we do this press conference, there's no taking it back. I've never been more certain of anything. He rested his good hand on my shoulder, meeting my eyes in the mirror. Emma, I need you to know, whatever happens today, you've changed me. Made me see possibilities I'd never considered before. Before I could respond, Dante appeared in the doorway. Boss, Marco's here, and he brought his own cameras. Vincent's expression hardened. Of course he did. Emma, remember what we discussed. You're here as my partner, my equal. Let Marco see that you're not afraid of him. We descended to the main floor where a makeshift press area had been set up in the formal living room. Marco was already there, surrounded by his own men, looking smug in a cream suit that probably cost more than my old car. Vincent, he said, all false warmth, and the lovely Miss Thompson, how delightful that you could join us for this momentous occasion. Marco, Vincent replied coolly, his hand finding the small of my back. Shall we get started? The cameras started rolling, and Vincent launched into the prepared statement. He spoke about cooperation, about the future of their combined territories, about bringing stability to their operations. He made it sound reasonable, inevitable, even admirable. But I watched Marco's face and saw the truth. He thought he'd won, thought Vincent had capitulated, shown weakness. His smile grew wider with each word Vincent spoke. Then Vincent dropped the first bomb. And to ensure transparency in this new partnership, I'm pleased to announce that Emma Thompson will be serving as our liaison to the legitimate business community. Her fresh perspective and outsider status make her uniquely qualified to help us navigate this transition. Marco's smile faltered slightly. I wasn't aware we'd discussed bringing in outside consultants. Emma's not an outsider anymore, Vincent said smoothly. She's family, and family has a voice in all major decisions. The second bomb. Additionally, I've invited representatives from the FBI's white-collar crime division to audit our combined operations. If we're truly merging our interests, we should have nothing to hide from federal oversight. Now Marco's smile disappeared entirely. That wasn't part of our agreement, Vincent. No, I thought we agreed to transparency and legitimacy. What better way to demonstrate that than welcoming federal scrutiny? Vincent's expression was innocent, but his eyes were steel. Unless, of course, there's something in your operations you'd prefer they not see. I watched Marco's face cycle through emotions: surprise, anger, calculation. He'd been outmaneuvered and he knew it. Refusing the FBI audit would make him look guilty. Accepting it would expose whatever illegal operations he wanted to keep hidden. I think, Marco said carefully, his voice tight, that we should discuss this in private before making such announcements public. Too late, Dante said from his position near the door, holding up his phone. Already streaming live to all major news outlets. Marco's mask of civility cracked. He stepped toward Vincent, his men tensing behind him. You think you're clever, Caruso? You think this changes anything? I think, Vincent replied calmly, that you just revealed your true intentions in front of a dozen cameras. So yes, I think it changes quite a bit. That's when everything went wrong. One of Marco's men pulled a gun, pointing it not at Vincent but at me. Nobody moves, the man growled, or the girl dies. Time seemed to slow. I felt Vincent's hand tighten on my back, saw Dante reaching for his own weapon, watched Marco's face cycle from shock to dark satisfaction. Put the gun away, Antonio, Marco said, but there was no urgency in his voice. We don't want anyone getting hurt. Don't we? The gunman replied. You said she was the key. You said if we control her, we control Caruso. Everything clicked into place. This had been Marco's backup plan all along. If Vincent didn't cooperate, take me hostage. Emma, Vincent said softly, his voice steady despite the gun pointed at me. Remember what I taught you yesterday. When I move, you move. Yesterday, the self-defense lesson in the garden, which I'd thought was paranoia. Now I understood. Vincent had been preparing me for exactly this moment. "On 3, he whispered. 1, 2. He moved on 2, not 3, pushing me down and to the left, while simultaneously drawing his own weapon. Dante fired at the same moment, taking down Antonio before the man could squeeze his trigger. Chaos erupted. More guns appeared, shouts echoing off marble floors. Marco's men backed toward the exit while Vincent's men surrounded them. And through it all, the cameras kept rolling. "Stand down!" Marco yelled at his men, realizing too late what a disaster this had become. "Everyone stand down!" But it was too late. The attempted hostage situation, broadcast live to the world, had destroyed any pretense of legitimate business dealings. The FBI would have no choice but to investigate now. The commission would have to act. Marco had lost. Vincent helped me to my feet, his eyes scanning me for injuries. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, adrenaline making my hands tremble. "I'm okay." "Vincent, the plan worked." "Better than I hoped." He turned to Marco, who stood frozen, watching his empire crumble around him. "This is done, Marco. The commission will see the footage, the feds will investigate, and you'll be lucky if you avoid prison." "This isn't over," Marco spat, but the venom in his voice was undercut by desperation. "You think you've won? You've just made yourself a target for every family that doesn't want federal oversight." "Maybe," Vincent conceded, "or maybe I've just changed the game entirely. Made it about legitimacy instead of territory, business instead of blood." His arm came around my waist. "Either way, I have something worth fighting for now, something worth protecting." As Marco and his men were escorted out by people I assumed were undercover FBI agents, I leaned into Vincent's embrace. My whole body was shaking with delayed shock. "Is it really over?" I asked. "The immediate threat?" "Yes. Marco's done. He'll face federal charges, probably turn on his own people to save himself." Vincent kissed the top of my head. "But there will always be new threats, Emma. New challenges. That's the reality of this life. Then I guess it's good I'm not planning on going anywhere." He pulled back to look at me, something vulnerable in his eyes. "You're sure? About all of this? About me?" I thought about everything that had happened since I'd seen that red dot at the charity gala. The terror, yes, but also the excitement. The danger, but also the purpose. And Vincent, complicated, dangerous, protective Vincent, who'd changed my life in ways I was still trying to understand. "I saved your life," I said. "I think I'm entitled to stick around and make sure it was worth the effort." His laugh was genuine, full of relief and joy. "I love you, Emma Thompson. I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy, but I do." "It is too soon," I agreed. "And it is crazy. But I love you too, Vincent Caruso. So I guess we're both insane." He kissed me then, deep and claiming, in front of the remaining cameras and his men and Maria, who I glimpsed wiping tears from her eyes. When we finally broke apart, Dante cleared his throat. "Boss, we should probably deal with the FBI agents who are currently surrounding the property." Vincent sighed. "Right. Emma, this might take a while. Legal negotiations, statements, all the boring parts of going legitimate." "I'll be here," I promised. Wherever here ends up being. I stood in the ballroom of the newly renamed Caruso-Thompson Foundation building, watching Vincent give a speech about community investment and legitimate business practices. He'd kept his word, turned his operations legal, worked with federal prosecutors to clean up the criminal elements, and built an empire based on actual business rather than fear. It hadn't been easy. Some families had resisted, tried to push back. But Vincent's gamble had paid off. By going legitimate first, by cooperating with authorities, he'd positioned himself as the future, while his rivals looked like dinosaurs clinging to a dying past. And me? I'd become exactly what we'd claimed at that press conference, his partner in every sense of the word. I ran the foundation, managed the legitimate business operations, and somewhere along the way, fell completely and irrevocably in love with the man who'd started as a dangerous stranger and become my whole world. "You're staring," Maria said beside me, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Can you blame me?" I gestured at Vincent, confident and commanding at the podium. 6 months ago, I was a struggling waitress. Now I'm engaged to a former mob boss turned legitimate businessman, running a multi-million-dollar foundation. "Former mob boss," Maria repeated with a smile. "I like that you can say it so casually now." I looked down at the ring on my finger, a simple band with a single perfect diamond. Vincent had proposed last month, on the balcony of the blue guest suite that had become my room, then our room. "Life is strange," I said, "but I wouldn't change any of it." Vincent finished his speech to enthusiastic applause and made his way over to us, his eyes finding mine immediately. "Ready to go home?" he asked, taking my hand. "Always." As we left the building together, his security team a discreet presence around us, I thought about that night at the charity gala, about the split-second decision to save a stranger's life, about everything that had followed. I'd been looking for a better life when I moved to Miami. I'd just never imagined I'd find it by dancing with danger itself. Vincent squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, both of us smiling at the future we'd built from the ashes of his past. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones you make without thinking. Sometimes saving someone's life means giving them yours in return. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most dangerous path leads exactly where you're supposed to be.